Americans are when they go and in this country, when you go and you support a team, whether it's football or whatever. I mean, I'm a Raider fan, you know, and when I go to a football game, I'm cheering for my team, I'm cheering for the Raiders, you know. And Mexico's playing the United States. Some people like the Mexican soccer team.
Sure.
They're going to cheer for the Mexican soccer team. But after the game, they go back to work and they go back and pay taxes. And that's what's important here.
Yeah, but Jared had mentioned about the national anthems. It's a little different than the actual match itself.
I think it's very clear that if they're supporting the Mexican team because those are their blood brothers, there's a clear cultural and racial identification there that is greater than whatever identification they may have theoretically to the United States. In fact, many Mexicans here, they will tell you point blank, they don't come here because they have any admiration for Thomas Jefferson. They come here because they can make a better living here. In fact, that's just what Oscar, what is your name?
Dela Torre.
Yes, Mr. Dela Torre was saying earlier. Quality of life, standard of living. That's what they care about. Well, they don't care about loyalty to the United States, as far as I can tell.
We'll pick this up.
That they do not.
I'm sorry for the interruption. Let's take a short break, folks. We'll be right back with more Frankly Speaking Radio after this. Good morning. Welcome back, my friends. Glad to have you here with us today. We are currently having a spirited discussion with our two guests, Jared Taylor and Oscar De La Torre. Thank you both for being here. You know, the concept of standard of living and I guess quality of life was brought up as far as, people being here and whatnot. I would like to maybe direct this along a certain line of I guess, discussion. Do you think, and I guess we'll start with you, Jared, since I unfortunately had to interrupt you there. Do you think that when people come to a country like America, for example, that they should retain all of their cultural traditions, beliefs, holidays, celebrations? Should they adapt completely to the new country they live in, including the language that's spoken or whatnot? Because obviously, with quality of life, if you're looking at it from that point of view, you're going to want your whole life to be of good quality, not just the financial opportunities.
If you become a citizen of the United States, if you become a naturalized citizen, you take an oath. You renounce any kind of loyalty, something like a foreign nation, state, prince, or potentate, and you pledge your full allegiance to the United States. That is the oath of citizenship that people take. If they then turn around and tell a pollster they consider themselves primarily Mexican, first of all Mexican, they've committed perjury. They have no right to American citizenship. They have violated their oath of naturalization. I think that is a completely inappropriate thing, and anyone who behaves that way should be stripped of American citizenship. You can't pledge loyalty to a country and then claim, no, that was just a joke. I did that so I can get a passport. I did that so I can get Social Security. I did that so that I can vote in America, perhaps on matters of interest to Mexico. No, you can't get away with that, but people do it all the time. Millions of people do it all the time. As far as retaining certain cultural affinity in terms of retaining a language, in terms of celebrating certain holidays, that's a personal matter. That in their personal lives, they're free to do that. But as far as their public commitment, psychologically, emotionally, they should commit to the nation to which they have sworn an oath, not the one of their birth, if they choose to accept American citizenship.
Well, before I let Oscar respond, let me follow up with this, Jared. Is there a way, do you think, in your mind, to enforce that sort of thing? I mean, you mentioned about a legal challenge to someone's to the way they respond, the perjury, again, which I did not know, by the way. But let's just say, for example, that was something, if it was actionable, is there a way to follow up on that? Is there a way to enforce it to make sure that law is abided by?
As a matter of fact, there have been legal challenges along this line. And to my dismay, one federal court determined that, well, okay, that's what the oath says, but we're just not going to hold people to that. That is a sign of the kind of psychological capitulation of the United States of America. And if we are guilty of that kind of psychological capitulation, then millions of people will take advantage of us. It's like saying, sure, you can come to the United States. You don't even have to come here legally. Break into the country, and you can pay in-state tuition to a university. You can get free health care. You can go to school. That, too, is complete psychological capitulation. I don't blame Mexicans coming into this country. They're leaving a country where the average wage is 1/6 the the minimum wage in this country. They come here because they want to make money. They make more money. And as a matter of fact, at the same time, they send billions of it back to Mexico. It leaves our economy and goes to the Mexican economy. That's fine. I don't blame them. They're doing what comes naturally. I blame Americans for permitting this. I also blame people like Mr. De La Torre for somehow defending it in terms of historical terms, for example. Well, this place was Hispanic anyway, so get used to it. It's going to get Hispanic and more Hispanic. No, they're here for coldly economic reasons. Many of them have no loyalty whatsoever to the United States, and they should admit it.
Oscar, please respond.
Yeah, well, I think it's just ridiculous. I mean, to say that Mexican Americans, are not loyal to this country. I mean, my nephew signed up for the Marines right after 9/11, and many of us, we have proven our loyalty, and we'll continue to do that. The other reality is this: when people start paying taxes, when people start making money in this country, they buy a home. That's what they're going to protect. The Mexican people that are coming over, they're not loyal to the Mexican government. That's the government that caused them to leave their country. Nobody wants to leave their country, and the Mexican government, because of the corruption and because of the problems in that government, many people have been forced to leave their country. So those Mexicans aren't loyal to the Mexican government. Now, they might feel proud of being Mexican. They might want to speak Spanish and retain their culture. I think that's a positive thing. I mean, imagine if the Chinese assimilated fully. We wouldn't have a Chinatown. There are certain ethnic enclaves in this country that make this country great. I think diversity is our strength. And I want to make sure that all the listeners really reflect on that question. Make sure that all the listeners really reflect on that question. Diversity is our strength. We want to make sure that we are a country that welcomes the world here. This country was built by immigrants, and everybody who considers themselves an American. If you're not Native American, then everybody was either brought here in slavery or immigrated here. So this is a country of immigrants. We need to appreciate our history, and I think that's the strength and our foundation as a nation is celebrating our diversity and allowing immigrants, to have a better life in this country. That's how we defeat all our enemies, is by showing that this country is great and this country wants people to make a better life for themselves.
If I can jump in here, I'm sorry. Time for another quick commercial, folks. We'll be right back. Please stay with us. More Frankly Speaking Radio on the way with our two guests. Good morning and welcome back, my friends. You are listening to Tuesday's edition of Frankly Speaking Radio. I'm very happy that you're here with us today. Be sure to check out our website, Frankly Speaking Radio. You'll see links there to our guests' individual websites, which are, incidentally, Jared Taylor's website is American Renaissance, which is amren.com, I believe. And Oscar De La Torre's website, the Pico Youth and Family Center, is picouth.org. Oscar, I'd like to start out with you. In your opinion, should the U.S. borders be completely open, fully closed, somewhere in the middle?
Well, I think the U.S. borders, the way it is working just fine. I think one thing that needs to change, though, if we really want to control illegal immigration in this country, what we need to do is increase the amount of visas that we grant to Mexico and other Latin American countries. I talked with the Mexican consul here in Los Angeles, and he said that if the United States increased the amount of visas to about 300,000 a year, that we would pretty much end illegal immigration into the country. But it's because this country, the United States government, only allocates about 50,000 visas to Mexico a year. It forces a lot of Mexican workers who want to make a better life and also want to contribute to the American economy and make this their home, their second home. It forces them to come over here illegally. So we need a better immigration policy, better relationship with Mexico and other Latin American countries, and other countries for that matter. Where there's a need for labor or for their skilled labor, and that's another thing that there are H-2 visas. There's other type of visas where this country gets the cream of the crop from India and other nations who are producing what we need, engineers, scientists. That's part of our strength. It's part of our strategy is to make sure that we recruit some of the best minds to come and work in this country to improve our quality of life.
Mr. Delatorre says they want to come and contribute to the U.S. economy. If that's the case, why do Mexicans send $15 billion out of the U.S. economy every year? That $15 billion, and it grows about 20% a year, that $15 billion is Mexico's largest source of foreign investment and is second only to oil in terms of foreign income. That doesn't sound like they're contributing to the American economy. In fact, that is money that is being taken right out of the economy and transferred to Mexico. Nor does it sound like loyalty to me. On the question of loyalty, as a matter of fact, there have been a number of U.S. citizens living in the United States of Mexican origin who have dual citizenship, who have run for office to join the Mexican Congress. Lately, in fact, there was a victor in that race. So we have an American citizen living in the United States who is a serving legislator in Mexico. In fact, there's some talk in Mexico of establishing a district, a genuine legislative district in North America, so that the United States would become simply a legislative district for Mexico. After all, 1/5 of the Mexican population already lives here. Why shouldn't they treat the United States as simply a legislative district? At the same time, there was a former president of Mexico, Ernesto Zedillo, in 1997, to a speech at the Chicago National Council of La Raza meaning race, of course. He said that he proudly affirmed that the Mexican nation extends beyond the territory enclosed by its borders, and that Mexican migrants are a very important part of this. What's he talking about? Obviously, he's talking about extending Mexican influence and Mexican power, ultimately perhaps even Mexican nationality to part of the United States. It extends beyond the borders of its territory. That's pretty clear to me. Now, at some point, we'll have to get back to this question of diversity. It's all very well for people who are not part of the majority to say diversity is a great strength. Telling white Americans, hey, diversity is good for your country. That's another way of saying, you people are no good. You need to be gingered up by folks from all around the world. If it were just the founding stock here, just white people here, think of what a miserable country you'd have. Diversity is so good for you. You sure don't hear people in Mexico talking about how diversity would be great for Mexico. Hey, let's import Indonesians, people from Thailand, people from Norway. You sure don't hear them talking about that. They want homogeneity for their own countries and then heterogeneity, diversity for other people's countries.
Oscar, I'd love to have you to respond to that.
Well, first of all, Mexico is a very diverse country. In Mexico, there are various indigenous groups, some that still speak their dialect. There's African ancestry in Mexico, and Spanish, and Filipino. I mean, Mexico is a very diverse nation, so it's hard to say. And there's different regions in Mexico, the north and the south, and Mexico City, the urban centers. I mean, the coast. I mean, it's just such a diverse country. So it's hard to say that Mexicans are one group.
Well, but if diversity and welcoming people from all over the world is such a great thing for America, why shouldn't Mexico do exactly the same thing? Of course it doesn't. It guards its borders very, very carefully. An American citizen can't even own property in Mexico. They are very careful about maintaining a Mexican identity and a Mexican population. Whether it's mestizo, whether it's Spanish, whether it's Indian, there is a certain diversity there, to be sure. They certainly don't want to increase it, and you don't hear Mexicans talking about, well, let's celebrate diversity by letting in people from all around the world, which is precisely what Mr. Delatorre is saying white Americans should be celebrating, our own diminishing influence in numbers. Isn't that what you're saying? You're saying, if it were all white, that'd just be no good. You need people from all around the world to make a good country here. White people by themselves, that'd be a miserable loser country. So you need diversity.
Mr. Delatorre. Oh, I guess we lost him. Ken, why don't you see if you can get him back on the phone there? Well, I would.